Princess Liara of Zephyria had always known her life was different. Born among the floating cities of her luminous planet, she spent her days walking on crystal bridges, watching the sky glow with shifting colors, and learning the arts of diplomacy and culture. Her people, gentle and wise, lived in harmony with nature, and Liara's life had been calm, structured, and peaceful. Yet today that peace felt fragile, as if it could shatter with the tiniest touch. The Galactic Council had summoned her to a high-priority meeting, and the reason for the summons made her heart race. Zephyria, known for its tranquility, had been asked to form an alliance with a human kingdom, a species rumored across galaxies for its courage, ambition, and sometimes ruthless efficiency. And the alliance, the council declared, would be sealed through marriage. Liara's stomach twisted. A marriage for duty was one thing, but this was different. She had read stories about humans, tales of battles won with precision, enemies subdued without hesitation, and leaders who were feared across systems. The human she was to marry was no ordinary prince. His name was Rylan, the Iron Star of the human empire, famous for his fearless nature and tactical brilliance in interstellar conflicts. Even the council's tone had been grave when discussing him, emphasizing his power and decisiveness. Liara felt a chill creep down her spine. She had never met Rylan, and yet she already feared him. Her advisors, loyal and careful, whispered among themselves, reminding her of the stories. "He is ruthless. Do not underestimate him," one had said. Another added, "Humans do not bend to others easily." Their courage borders on recklessness. Even her closest friend, Princess Morella, had said softly, "Liara, you must be strong, but do not let fear cloud your mind. Humans, they are different. Different." That word rang in Liara's head, echoing through her mind like the distant hum of Zephyria's wind towers. Different could mean many things. Could it mean cruel? Could it mean dangerous? The images of distant war zones of laser fire cutting through starships filled her imagination. She saw Rylan standing tall, expression hard, with eyes that seemed to weigh life and death without a second thought. Liara tried to calm herself. She reminded herself of her duties. Zephyria depended on alliances to maintain its peace and prosperity. The council had chosen her for a reason. She could not refuse, no matter how frightened she felt. And yet the thought of meeting him, of facing the human who was a legend of fear across galaxies, made her pulse quicken and her mind whirl with uncertainty. For days, she wandered Zephyria's crystal gardens, trying to distract herself. The gardens were beautiful, with floating flowers that glimmered under the twin suns and vines that grew along spiraling towers. The soft hum of energy from the city below mixed with the gentle rustle of leaves, and it was as if the planet itself whispered, "Breathe, be calm." Liara tried, but her mind would not rest. Every flower seemed smaller than her growing worry, every gentle breeze lighter than the weight on her shoulders. Her attendants noticed her unease. "Princess, you must rest," one suggested politely, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Liara forced a smile, though it did not reach her eyes. "I will rest," she replied softly, "but there are matters I cannot ignore." She did not tell them that the matter was not political or strategic. It was personal. She feared a human she had never met, a man whose reputation alone could freeze the hearts of even the bravest Zephyrians. Finally, the day of the meeting arrived. Liara's advisors accompanied her to the landing platform, a vast expanse where starships glided gracefully, their hulls shimmering like liquid metal in Zephyria's light. From a distance she saw Rylan's ship descend, a sleek vessel humming with power and efficiency. Even before he stepped out, Liara felt the tension in the air, a kind of silent warning that matched the tales she had heard. When Rylan finally appeared, Liara's breath caught. He was tall, commanding, with shoulders squared as though he bore the weight of countless worlds. His eyes, dark and intense, scanned the platform, and for a moment, she imagined they could see through her very soul. The whispers of his ruthlessness seemed to materialize around him, a tangible force that made Liara shrink slightly in her stance. Her advisors murmured among themselves, offering quiet introductions and explanations. Liara, her heart pounding, approached carefully, bowing with perfect form. Rylan nodded in acknowledgement, his expression unreadable but polite. The first words he spoke were firm but respectful. "Princess Liara, it is an honor to meet you." Liara nodded, her voice almost a whisper, "The honor is mine, Prince Rylan." The simplicity of her words contrasted sharply with the storm of emotion she felt inside. Fear, curiosity, awe, and a strange spark of something she could not name. As they walked through the gardens, Rylan asked questions. Simple questions about the floating cities, the plants, the people. Liara found herself surprised by his genuine interest. He was careful not to trample delicate flowers, and his gaze lingered on the beauty around them with curiosity, not indifference. The human she had imagined as a ruthless conqueror was showing thoughtfulness she had not expected. Yet fear did not leave her entirely. She kept a careful distance, her mind racing with what-ifs. What if his kindness was a mask? What if behind the calm demeanor lay a mind capable of terrible things? She reminded herself of his reputation, of the humans who had followed him across star systems, of the battles he had commanded with unmatched precision. She was a princess, but she was also cautious, and caution had always served her people well. They paused by a crystal waterfall, its waters glowing in soft blues and purples. Liara looked at the rushing cascade, gathering her courage. Rylan watched her patiently, not speaking until she turned to him. "I have heard much about you," she admitted, her voice steady though her heart still fluttered. "Stories. Of your strength, your courage, your ruthlessness." She said the last word quietly, almost hoping it would vanish in the waterfall's mist. Rylan did not flinch. Instead, he nodded slowly. "Yes," he said, "I have faced many challenges. But I do not take pleasure in harm. I act to protect, to ensure safety, to uphold duty. Stories can exaggerate, Princess. They often miss the intention behind actions." Liara studied him. Could this human, with his strong presence and calm voice, really be different from the fearsome figure she had imagined? Could he truly be more than the legend of ruthlessness that had followed him across star systems? She did not know yet, but a seed of curiosity planted itself deep in her mind. The day continued with more introductions, walks, and cautious conversations. Liara began to notice small details. The way Rylan helped an attendant reach a high shelf. The way he smiled when a young Zephyrian child asked him questions about Earth. These moments, though small, felt genuine and human. By the time the twin suns began to set, painting the skies in shades of gold and violet, Liara felt both exhausted and intrigued. Fear was still present, but now it was accompanied by a growing sense of curiosity. Perhaps, she thought, humans were not as simple as she had been told. Perhaps strength could exist alongside kindness. Perhaps courage could coexist with thoughtfulness. Liara returned to her quarters that evening, her mind alive with thoughts. She sat by the window, watching the floating cities glow in the dusk. Tomorrow would bring more meetings, more conversations, and more time with the human prince whose reputation had terrified her. But tonight she allowed herself a small, tentative hope. Perhaps fear was only the first step toward understanding. Perhaps courage, true courage, was not just in battle or legend, but in the willingness to face the unknown with an open mind. And so, as the stars of Zephyria began to twinkle above, Liara closed her eyes, preparing herself for the days ahead. She did not know what the future held, but she knew one thing. She would meet this human prince not with blind fear, but with careful observation, courage, and the hope that behind the stories there was a man worth knowing. The next morning, the sky above Zephyria glowed in shades of pale pink and gold, the twin suns rising slowly over the floating cities. Princess Liara stood on the crystal balcony of her palace, gazing out at the horizon. Her heart still thumped with a mixture of fear and anticipation. Today she would meet Prince Rylan more closely. It was one thing to see him from a distance, and another to spend time in his presence, learning about him firsthand. Her advisors arrived with gentle reminders. "Princess, remember to observe. Keep your mind open. Appear calm." Liara nodded, taking a deep breath. She wanted to seem composed, but she could not ignore the flutter of anxiety in her chest. She had spent all night thinking about Rylan. Could someone with such a fearsome reputation truly be as kind as he seemed yesterday? Rylan's ship landed softly on the platform below. The metallic hum of the engines faded, replaced by the soft wind that carried the scent of Zephyria's crystal gardens. Liara watched as the hatch opened. Rylan stepped out, tall and confident, but his eyes held a calmness that contrasted with the powerful figure she had imagined. "Good morning, Princess Liara," he said, bowing slightly. His voice was deep and steady, yet there was warmth in it that put her slightly at ease. "Good morning, Prince Rylan," Liara replied, her words measured and careful. Their first walk of the day was through Zephyria's gardens. Crystalline flowers glimmered in the sunlight, and delicate vines twined around transparent bridges. Liara moved cautiously, unsure how to act around the human prince. Every step she took was weighed with politeness and careful observation. Rylan's movements surprised her. He stepped lightly, careful not to crush the flowers or disturb the delicate balance of the gardens. He stopped often, pointing out small details as if he were genuinely curious. "These flowers," he said, touching a glowing petal lightly, "they are unlike anything on my homeworld. How do they bloom so brilliantly?" Liara's heart softened at his words. He was asking, not judging. He wanted to learn, not to command. "The soil here is infused with light crystals," she explained, "and the water carries energy from our twin suns. That combination helps the plants grow strong and radiant." Rylan nodded, listening intently. He asked more questions, each one careful and respectful. As they walked, Liara noticed that he did not rush. There was a patience in him, a quiet focus that felt strange coming from someone she had imagined as ruthless. His presence was commanding, yes, but it was not threatening. It was simply steady. They paused by a waterfall, its crystal waters cascading into a glowing pool. Liara watched the water sparkle, and then glanced at Rylan. He leaned over the railing, observing the pool with a thoughtful expression. "Your people live in harmony with nature," he said. "I can see why Zephyria is known for its beauty. You respect the world around you, and it respects you in return." Liara blinked, surprised by his insight. "It is not just beauty," she replied slowly. "It is balance. Everything must have its place. Life is precious, and we strive to protect it." Rylan's eyes met hers, and for a moment the stories of ruthlessness felt distant. "On my world," he said, "strength is often measured by power in battle. But true strength may lie in protection and respect, as you have shown me here." Liara felt a spark of hope. Perhaps she had misjudged him. Perhaps the human prince was not the terrifying figure she had imagined, but someone who could understand kindness and responsibility. As they continued their walk, Rylan noticed a group of young Zephyrian children playing near a floating bridge. One child stumbled, teetering on the edge. Without hesitation, Rylan stepped forward, catching the child before he fell. Liara's heart leapt, both in fear and admiration. The human prince had acted decisively yet carefully, ensuring the child was safe without alarming the others. The children clapped and laughed, and Rylan smiled gently, returning the boy to his friends. Liara saw then that his courage was real, but it was not blind aggression. It was controlled, purposeful, and protective. The stories of ruthlessness seemed to have overlooked this essential part of him. After the children ran off, Rylan turned to Liara. "I hope that was not too alarming," he said with a soft grin. "I would not wish to frighten anyone." Liara shook her head, smiling slightly. "It was impressive," she admitted. I see now that strength can be gentle as well as firm." They spent the rest of the morning exploring the gardens, observing the floating fauna, and even participating in a brief cultural ritual where visitors were asked to plant a luminous seed. Liara explained the significance of the ritual, how it represented care for the future and growth for all life. Rylan carefully planted his seed, his hands steady and respectful. He asked questions about the process, about the symbolism, and listened attentively to Liara's explanations. By the afternoon, Liara noticed a subtle change in herself. Fear was still there, a quiet shadow at the edges of her thoughts, but curiosity had replaced much of it. She began to wonder not about the dangers of Rylan, but about the man he truly was. His patience, his thoughtfulness, and his willingness to learn impressed her. The human who had seemed a figure of terror was showing depth, intelligence, and care. As they walked toward the city center, Rylan asked, "Princess Liara, may I be honest with you?" Liara nodded, intrigued. "Yes, Prince Rylan. I was nervous about coming here," he admitted. "Stories of your people and your planet are grand, but I feared I might make mistakes or offend your customs. Humans are not always familiar with other cultures, and I did not wish to cause harm." Liara studied him carefully. This admission surprised her. He was not afraid of battle or enemies. He was afraid of failing to respect her people. She felt a growing respect for him. Courage, she realized, was not only in facing wars, it was also in humility, in acknowledging one's limits, and in striving to do right. Your concern shows wisdom, Prince Rylan, she replied. It is rare for anyone to approach something unfamiliar with such thoughtfulness. I am grateful. They reached the city center where Zephyrian officials awaited them. Rylan spoke with them respectfully, asking about governance, trade, and culture. Liara observed carefully. He negotiated politely, listened attentively, and suggested ideas thoughtfully, never asserting dominance but showing leadership through understanding. By the end of the day, Liara felt a mixture of relief and admiration. The human she had feared was not cruel or reckless. He was strong, yes, but his strength was guided by wisdom and care. The stories that had terrified her were only part of the truth. They had not shown his compassion, his respect for life, or his willingness to learn. As the suns began to set again, casting soft golden light over the floating cities, Liara and Rylan returned to the palace. The gardens glowed under the twin suns' fading light, and the water of the waterfall shimmered like liquid stars. Liara felt a strange warmth in her chest. Fear had not disappeared entirely, but it had changed. Now it was tempered by curiosity, hope, and the faintest spark of trust. Perhaps, she thought, the human prince was not the figure of dread she had imagined, but someone who could be an ally, a partner, and maybe even a friend. That night, as she rested in her quarters, Liara reflected on the day. She had faced the human up close and had survived, not just physically, but emotionally. Her fear had been replaced by understanding, and she realized something important. The reputation of a person might be frightening, but meeting them, seeing their actions, and hearing their words could reveal a completely different truth. Tomorrow promised more time together, more conversations, and more opportunities to see the man behind the legend. Liara's mind buzzed with anticipation. She did not know what the coming days would hold, but she knew she would face them with courage, and with a willingness to see beyond the stories she had been told. And for the first time since the proposal, Liara felt a quiet, hopeful excitement. Perhaps the human prince was not a threat at all. Perhaps he was someone she could understand, someone whose strength and courage could match the wisdom and kindness of Zephyria itself. The morning sun spilled across Zephyria's floating cities in soft golden light, illuminating the crystal towers and the delicate gardens that hung in the air like ornaments of another world. Princess Liara rose early, her mind restless with thoughts of the human prince. Rylan was no longer just a story of fear. He was real, standing before her with patience, curiosity, and courage. Yet she knew that a single day could not reveal the whole truth of a person. Today, she resolved she would observe him closely, learn more about the man behind the legend. The day began with a tour of Zephyria's administrative center, a place where leaders and advisors manage the delicate balance of the floating cities. Liara walked alongside Rylan, explaining the intricacies of her people's governance. Our system relies on balance, she said. Every voice is heard, every life considered. Decisions are made with care, not haste. Rylan listened intently, his dark eyes following her as she spoke. Your people are wise, he said. It is rare to find such thoughtfulness. Humans often rush decisions driven by urgency or fear. I can see why your world thrives peacefully. Liara felt a flutter of admiration. The human noticed details, he respected them, and he spoke with sincerity, but she reminded herself to remain cautious. Legends could be misleading. Perhaps his careful manner hid a more ruthless nature, one that would emerge when he was challenged. Their tour was interrupted by a sudden commotion. A Zephyrian messenger ran toward them, panic in his voice. Princess Liara, there has been an accident in the lower garden district. A bridge has partially collapsed and citizens are trapped. Liara's heart leapt. She and Rylan exchanged a glance. Without hesitation, Rylan moved forward. Show me the way, he said firmly, his voice calm but commanding. Liara followed, her pulse racing. She had read of his bravery in distant battles, but now she would see it firsthand. As they arrived, the scene was more alarming than she had imagined. A delicate bridge suspended over a glowing crystal river had fractured, leaving several Zephyrians stranded. Panic had set in among the crowd, and the citizens were unsure how to act without causing more harm. Rylan assessed the situation quickly. His eyes moved over the scene, taking in the positions of the trapped citizens, the stability of the remaining bridge, and the nearby supports that could be used for rescue. Liara watched, breathless, as the human prince demonstrated decisiveness and careful thought, combining speed with safety. "Princess," he said, "please guide the citizens to safe spots while I secure the bridge." Liara nodded, organizing the Zephyrians as he instructed. Rylan moved swiftly, carefully placing support beams and stabilizing the fractured structure. When a small child teetered near the edge, he caught her gently, keeping her calm while setting her back on solid ground. Liara's heart pounded, not from fear but from awe. The human they had feared for his ruthlessness acted with precision, bravery, and care. The rescue was successful. Every Zephyrian was safe and the bridge was secured. Citizens clapped and cheered, and Rylan simply nodded, returning to Liara's side without a word of pride. "That was remarkable," Liara said softly, still shaken. "You acted quickly but with such care. The stories I heard, they did not mention this side of you." Rylan gave a faint smile. "Stories rarely capture the whole person," he said. "I have faced battles, yes, but I do not seek harm. Strength is not in fear, but in the ability to protect." Liara studied him, her fear dissolving further. The man who had seemed terrifying was not cruel or reckless. He was courageous, compassionate, and careful. And more than that, he was humble, unafraid to acknowledge the importance of protecting life over seeking glory. After the rescue, Liara decided to show Rylan more of her world. They traveled to the upper gardens where rare Zephyrian fauna thrived. Birds with translucent wings darted between crystal branches, and flowers glowed softly with inner light. Rylan observed everything with fascination, asking questions about each species and its role in the ecosystem. "Your people have created harmony with nature," he remarked. "It is inspiring. On my world, we often see nature as something to be used, not respected. I envy your balance." Liara felt a sense of pride. She realized that she was beginning to see beyond Rylan's reputation, seeing the depth of his character and his willingness to learn. For the first time, she felt that a human, a species so different from her own, could truly understand and appreciate the beauty of Zephyria. As they walked along a glowing crystal path, they came across a small village of Zephyrian artisans. The villagers worked on delicate crafts, creating luminous sculptures and weaving fabrics that shimmered like the stars. Rylan approached carefully, observing their work with genuine interest. "Your people create beauty from care and patience," he said quietly. "It is a kind of strength I did not know existed." Liara nodded, pleased by his insight. "Strength takes many forms," she said. "It is not only in power or force, but in patience, in respect, and in the choices we make." Rylan looked at her thoughtfully. "I am beginning to understand that," he said. "I have relied on strategy and discipline in battles, but there is a wisdom here, one that guides without force. I hope to learn more from you and your people." Liara felt her heart warm. The human prince, feared across galaxies for his ruthlessness, was showing openness, humility, and a desire to grow. She realized that the reputation of a person could be misleading, and that true understanding required time, observation, and trust. As the day progressed, Liara and Rylan shared quiet moments of conversation. They discussed the challenges of leadership, the importance of protecting those under one's care, and the value of learning from others. Liara found herself laughing at Rylan's curious attempts to understand Zephyrian customs, and she was impressed by his thoughtful responses. At one point, Rylan asked, "Princess Liara, may I ask something personal?" "Of course," Liara replied, curious. "Do you ever feel afraid?" he asked. His gaze was direct, sincere. Liara paused. Fear had been a constant companion since the announcement of their engagement. But now, standing beside Rylan, she realized that fear was not weakness, it was part of being alive. "Yes," she said honestly. "I feared you at first because of the stories. I feared what I did not know. But I see now that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to face it." Rylan smiled, a small, genuine expression that reached his eyes. "I am glad you see it that way. I too have felt fear many times. Fear guides us, reminds us of what matters, and teaches us to act with care." Liara felt a growing bond forming between them, a connection built on respect, understanding, and the shared recognition of courage and responsibility. She realized that the human prince was not the figure of terror she had imagined, but a man capable of empathy, wisdom, and strength guided by principle. As evening fell, casting a soft violet glow over the floating cities, Liara and Rylan returned to the palace. The skies reflected the colors of their thoughts, soft, bright, and full of possibility. Liara knew that her fear of Rylan was not gone, but it had transformed into something different: curiosity, respect, and the first spark of trust. Sitting in her quarters that night, Liara reflected on the events of the day. She had seen Rylan's bravery in action, witnessed his careful thought, and observed his compassion toward both people and nature. The human prince was not only strong but wise, not only courageous but kind. He was not the ruthless figure she had feared, but someone whose strength complemented the values of Zephyria. Tomorrow would bring more opportunities to learn, more moments to see the real man behind the legend. Liara's anticipation was no longer tinged with fear. It was filled with hope and curiosity. Perhaps, she thought, understanding and courage could bridge even the greatest differences between species. And as she watched Zephyria's twin moons rise, casting gentle light over the crystal towers, Liara realized something profound. Courage was not only in action or battle, but in the willingness to see beyond fear, to observe carefully, and to trust the truth of what one witnesses. The human prince was no longer a story of terror. He was real, complex, and capable of extraordinary care, and for the first time, Liara felt that the future, uncertain as it might be, could be bright, with possibilities shaped by understanding, respect, and perhaps even friendship. The next morning, Zephyria's skies were clear, with a gentle breeze that carried the fragrance of luminous flowers across the floating cities. Princess Liara stood at the balcony of her palace, watching the soft shimmer of sunlight on the crystal bridges. Her thoughts were on Rylan, the human prince whose reputation had once terrified her but whose presence now filled her with cautious curiosity and respect. Today, they were to visit the lower districts, a bustling area where artisans, traders, and citizens lived and worked. Liara had invited Rylan not only to observe but to understand the daily life of her people. It was a test of patience, diplomacy, and empathy, qualities that defined leadership in Zephyria. Rylan's ship landed with its familiar soft hum. As he stepped out, Liara noticed a subtle change in his expression. He looked thoughtful, as if he had spent the night reflecting on the events of the previous day. When he saw her, his serious look softened into a gentle smile. "Good morning, Princess Liara," he said. "I am ready to learn more about your world today." Liara nodded, returning the smile. "And I hope to see more of your true self as well," she replied quietly, remembering the courage and care he had shown during the bridge rescue. Their first stop was a marketplace where Zephyrian traders sold glowing fruits, woven fabrics, and delicate crystal ornaments. Rylan observed quietly, asking questions about each item with genuine curiosity. Liara was impressed by how attentively he listened, even to the smallest details, and how respectfully he interacted with the citizens. One merchant approached them, bowing respectfully. "Princess Liara, this is a rare fruit from the floating orchards. It is said to bring clarity and energy to those who eat it." Rylan accepted the fruit politely, examining it with care before tasting a small piece. He closed his eyes, savoring the flavor, then smiled. "This is exquisite. Your people create beauty and function in harmony. It is a lesson even I can learn from." Liara laughed softly, pleased by his remark. His words showed more than admiration. They showed understanding. He was learning, not just observing. As they walked deeper into the marketplace, a young Zephyrian child ran past, chasing a floating crystal bird. The child tripped, falling near a canal of glowing water. Without hesitation, Rylan reached out, catching the child safely and setting him on solid ground. Liara's heart swelled with admiration. "You always act so quickly," she said softly. "You saved the child yesterday and now again today." Rylan shrugged lightly, his expression calm. "It is not bravery alone. It is awareness and responsibility. Strength without care can cause harm, but with care it can protect." Liara studied him, realizing how his actions reflected a philosophy she respected deeply. Strength and courage were meaningful only when paired with empathy, and Rylan had shown both repeatedly. After the marketplace, they visited a school where Zephyrian children learned about history, science, and the arts. Rylan watched the students with interest, asking questions about their methods and the energy crystals that powered their learning devices. Liara noticed the genuine fascination in his eyes. He was absorbing everything, not merely observing. One student asked him, "Prince Rylan, is your world like Zephyria?" Rylan knelt to meet the child's eye level. "No, little one," he said. "Our worlds are very different, but we can learn from each other. Zephyria teaches me that strength and respect can go together." Liara felt a quiet admiration for him. Here was a human prince, feared across galaxies, showing humility and thoughtfulness in front of children. His reputation of ruthlessness was now balanced by visible compassion and a willingness to learn. As the day progressed, Liara and Rylan shared quiet conversations about leadership, culture, and their own lives. Rylan admitted his fears, not of battle or enemies, but of misunderstanding a world unlike his own. Liara shared her hopes for Zephyria's future, her concerns for her people, and the weight of responsibility she carried. They laughed together at small misunderstandings, the differences between human and Zephyrian habits, and Liara felt a closeness growing between them. It was subtle yet unmistakable. Trust, respect, and understanding were forming, replacing the fear that had once dominated her thoughts. By evening, they walked along a crystal bridge overlooking a glowing river, the light reflecting softly on their faces. Liara looked at Rylan and realized something remarkable. The man who had once terrified her was now someone she admired. His courage, empathy, and willingness to learn were qualities that mirrored the values she held dear. "I see you differently now," Liara said quietly, almost to herself. Rylan turned to her, curiosity in his eyes. "How so?" "You are not the ruthless figure the stories told me about," she said. "You are strong, yes, but your strength is guided by care. You are courageous, yet considerate. You do not seek fear, you seek understanding and protection." Rylan smiled, a faint, genuine expression. "And you, Princess Liara, are wise beyond your years. You lead with patience and kindness, qualities I have rarely seen together. I hope to live up to them." Liara felt her heart lighten. Perhaps, she thought, two worlds so different could find harmony through understanding, respect, and shared courage. As night fell, Zephyria's twin moons rose, bathing the floating cities in silver light. Liara retired to her chambers, her mind alive with reflection. She realized that fear had been replaced by admiration, respect, and the beginnings of trust. And with trust, there was hope. Hope that two very different beings could learn from each other, and that their alliance could grow into something deeper than duty. The day of the wedding ceremony arrived, and Zephyria's floating cities shimmered with life. Citizens decorated bridges and towers with luminous crystals, casting soft, radiant light across the streets and gardens. The occasion was not just a union of two individuals, but a celebration of harmony between worlds, cultures, and hearts. Princess Liara stood in her ceremonial robes, feeling a mixture of excitement and serenity. She thought back to the first time she had heard of Prince Rylan, the terrifying human, the legendary warrior. And now, after days of meeting, observing, and learning, she saw him as he truly was, courageous, compassionate, and wise. Rylan arrived, tall and confident, yet his expression softened with a rare warmth reserved for this moment. He bowed respectfully, and Liara noticed the way his eyes reflected sincerity and admiration. The man who had once seemed intimidating now appeared as a partner she could trust, someone who would stand beside her not with fear, but with respect and care. The ceremony began, held on a grand crystal platform overlooking the glowing city. Zephyrian musicians played gentle melodies, and the air was filled with the soft fragrance of radiant flowers. Liara walked toward Rylan, her steps steady and heart full of quiet anticipation. As they exchanged vows, the words were more than promises. They were reflections of shared understanding, courage, and mutual respect. Liara spoke of her commitment to protect and guide, to share knowledge, and to lead with compassion. Rylan spoke of his dedication to protect, to learn, and to honor the values that Zephyria held dear. When their hands met, it was not merely a symbolic gesture. It was the connection of two hearts, two worlds, and two beings who had learned to see beyond fear, reputation, and difference. The bond was strong, built not on legend or expectation, but on observation, trust, and genuine admiration. After the ceremony, Liara and Rylan stepped onto a balcony overlooking the city. The citizens cheered below, and the floating bridges shimmered with light. Liara turned to Rylan, feeling a sense of calm and excitement. "Do you feel the same as I do?" she asked softly. "I do," Rylan replied, his voice steady and warm. "I have learned so much from you, Princess Liara. You have shown me courage, wisdom, and kindness, and I hope to be worthy of your trust, now and always." Liara smiled, feeling a lightness in her heart. "And I have learned from you, Prince Rylan. Courage is not only in action but in care. Strength is not only in power but in protection and understanding. Understanding builds bridges stronger than any crystal or metal." Together they looked out over the glowing city, the floating gardens, and the luminous towers of Zephyria. Two worlds, once distant and separate, now connected through the bond of trust and respect between two remarkable beings. In that moment, Liara realized something profound. Fear had been a teacher, guiding her to observe, to question, and to see beyond stories. Curiosity had allowed her to discover the truth, and trust had led her to hope, to admiration, and perhaps even to love. Rylan reached for her hand, and Liara felt a sense of unity that transcended species, culture, and expectation. Together they were not only a symbol of interstellar alliance but a living proof that understanding, courage, and empathy could overcome fear and difference. As the twin moons rose higher, casting silver light across the floating cities, Liara and Rylan stood side by side, ready to face the future together. Their journey had begun with fear, moved through curiosity, and blossomed into trust. And now united, they looked forward to a new beginning, one where strength was tempered with kindness, courage guided by wisdom, and two worlds could flourish together. And for Princess Liara, the human who had once seemed terrifying was no longer a legend of fear, but a partner in hope, courage, and shared destiny.